The 4 weeks since our last gathering seemed like a long time to me, and perhaps for some of you. This was because of the vague, unfinished business kind of feeling that I had after presenting Synchronicity Part 1 in December. Now, for those of you who weren't here last month, time constraints forced me to break up my overall story into 2 parts, and so waiting a whole month before I could complete the story seemed like a long time. I also found myself wondering if the incredible and overwhelming research material that seemed to keep appearing over the last month would allow me to make Synchronicity Part 2 an actual ending to the story. Finally reminded myself that this community is called The Question for a reason. And the reason is that together we fight our conditioning that such an incredible story requires a completion, or an ending, or even an answer. So I'll share Part 2 with you tonight, with the more realistic notion that I've not really written an ending, but maybe just the beginning of a beginning. However, because this whole presentation was at least intended to be a 2-parter, I need to kind of reset the stage for both new and returning community members by borrowing a familiar narrative device from television called the recap sequence. So, previously on Synchronicity. Last month I began the presentation with a couple of personal stories. The first story concerned 2 expectant mothers, one of them my wife, first meeting in a hospital as they experienced labor, then sharing unexpected risks and profound joy in the birthing process, and then being abruptly separated with no way of staying in touch with each other. 4 years later, as I was busy tidying up my garage, an unexpected tandem bicycle accident right on the street in front of my house drew me to the rescue of the rider and her young passenger. It was the very same young mother from the hospital and her now 4-year-old daughter. Now, our families have never lost touch again. The second personal story occurred in the spring of last year as I was driving on a secondary gravel road trying to find a recording studio located on a rural acreage just outside Chestermere. I stopped for just a few seconds to glance at a Google Maps printout, just to get my bearings. About a minute later, as I was approaching an uncontrolled crossroads, partially obscured by trees and farm buildings, another vehicle suddenly rocketed across my path from the right, missing the front end of my vehicle by just a few feet. My life was altered, perhaps forever, by just a momentary glance at a Google map.